Now, a little bit on the energy sector, and that is information we have from our sister organization, the International Energy Agency. And there will be looking at sort of energy efficiency that has a number of benefits. They calculated, that's their number, so I'm not the expert on this, but based on what they say, that energy costs would be reduced by 8.6 trillion globally over a period from 2010 to 2030, based on a number of investments they have recommended of 8.3 billion. So there is already a gain there. That's a direct gain. There's also the long-term gain because you have these systems in place. There are additional benefits. Health, the air pollutants will be reduced, SO2, almost 30%, NOx reduced by 20%. There is the advantage of energy security, less dependence on oil and gas imports, and climate change mitigation. I mentioned that there could be account for over 70% of emissions abatement by 2030. And again, an integrated mix of policies would be necessary: carbon pricing, energy efficiency, and support for low carbon technologies. Talking about energy efficiency a little bit more, for the climate change, if you would implement these things, 8.2 gigaton of CO2 per year could be saved. And that's, again, in addition to the economic, health, and energy security benefits. And many countries are putting these energy efficiency policies in place. National strategies, as a minimum energy performance standards, also more innovative policies like markets for trading energy savings and specific financial incentives for energy efficient investments. And the IEA estimates that 40% of potential energy savings remain unexploited. So there is a great room for improvements there. Renewable energy, it's the contribution that is made there. 18% of global electricity generation and 1.5% of global transport fuel consumption comes from renewable energy, so there could also be a lot of improvement, and there are, of course, a lot of targets there for renewable energy technologies. A number of things that could be done in terms of policy. There are also removal of non-economic barriers, make the investment environment stable, predictable, transparent, because that also always helps to attract investments. Again, it's important to take into account how you deal with the transition to renewable energies and how you can phase in the commercialization. Guarantee a specific level of support for the technology, especially in the beginning, and consider also the the impacts of long-scale penetration of these technologies over the longer term in relation to the overall system. Now, I have a couple of schemes here. I'm not going to talk about these schemes in detail, but you will see that there are a lot of different elements. That's basically the point, in different stages that are already applied. In the development stage on the left, there are subsidies for research, development, and demonstration projects. There is things going on at the moment a lot in the second generation biofuels. OECD had a big campaign against the first generation biofuels, using crops to produce fuels, because that's environmentally not very sensible and also economically will never be good. But the second generation is something different. You see, when you go to niche markets where developing the photovoltaics, there are things that you can do with feed-in tariffs, feed-in premiums. There are other in the wind offshore technologies. There is the tradable green certificates are used. The emission trading schemes have a function when there is a mass market. So there are a lot of instruments you can use. And then finally, I mentioned a lot about indicators you have to measure. Again, this is a scheme I will not go over in detail, but just to show you there are lots of entry points to have indicators, and there's a lot of work to be done. This links up very much to the recommendations of the Stiglitz Commission, Joe Stiglitz and Fitoussi, sort of the progress of society, well-being, take that into account. That merges, of course, very well with new indicators for growth, and especially green growth. You can look at the inputs, the production process, the outputs, the consumers. You can all look at those phases. The efficiency of production, the efficiency of consumption and changes in consumption patterns. It's important what are the natural capital and the stocked environmental quality, because that is tapping in, that are the inputs. Also, that's sort of especially based on Stiglitz recommendations, the perception of what people feel, how do they think that life is organized now in a better way. Efficiency of policies can be measured. Again, these are all things that cannot be done in one day. We give our report in May 2011, our final report to the finance ministers, but one of the recommendations will be that we would do a lot more work in OECD as a horizontal project. We are an organization which is one of basically the only intergovernmental organization which has all the different ministries together. We're not sectoralized, so we can work together, and we propose to have a long-term program to work on green growth, focusing on a lot of things that we cannot cover now fully, the impacts on jobs, industrial restructuring, indicators, etc. So there's a lot of work to be done. And if you want to see where we are going, here is the site, the website, OECD.org/green growth.